The weeks leading up to the incident were uneventful, almost monotonous. My routine was clockwork: wake up, head to work, come home late, and collapse into bed. Balancing two jobs wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I lived alone in a small, modest house on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't much, but it was home. That night, like so many others, I got home around 10 p.m. My body was sore, my eyes heavy. After a quick shower, I slipped into bed, hoping for a few hours of uninterrupted sleep before the grind began anew. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels almost oppressive. I didn't think much of it at the time. Sometime after midnight, I woke up abruptly. It wasn't the usual grogginess of someone stirring in their sleep, it was sharp, a jolt of alertness that left my heart racing. At first, I thought it might have been a dream, but then I heard it. A faint creak, like a floorboard protesting under weight. It was distant, but distinct, coming from somewhere downstairs. Just the house settling, I whispered to myself, trying to dismiss the unease creeping up my spine. But something about it felt off. My house wasn't old enough to make those kinds of noises unprovoked. I sat up in bed, straining my ears. The next sound was unmistakable, the faint shuffle of footsteps. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was in my house. I instinctively grabbed my phone from the nightstand. The thought of calling the police crossed my mind, but I hesitated. What if it was nothing? What if it was just my paranoia playing tricks on me? I decided to investigate, if only to put my mind at ease. Sliding out of bed as quietly as I could, I made my way to the door. I opened it a crack and peered into the dark hallway. Everything was still. The faint glow of the streetlights outside cast elongated shadows through the windows, giving the house an eerie, otherworldly feel. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the hallway. My bare feet made no sound against the wooden floor as I crept toward the staircase. With every step, the knot of tension in my stomach tightened. When I reached the top of the stairs, I paused. The house below was shrouded in darkness. I could barely make out the outlines of furniture in the dim light. That's when I heard it again, a faint rustling, this time from the kitchen. The sound of something sliding across the counter. My pulse quickened. Whoever was in my house wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. I gripped the banister tightly, debating my next move. Part of me wanted to turn back, lock myself in my room, and call for help. But another part of me, driven by a mix of curiosity and fear, urged me to confront the intruder. I scanned the hallway for anything I could use as a weapon. My eyes landed on an old umbrella propped against the wall. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Armed with my makeshift weapon, I descended the stairs, each step deliberate and slow. The closer I got to the kitchen, the louder the noises became. Drawers opening and closing, the clink of silverware. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it a burglar? A desperate vagrant looking for food? Or something worse? I reached the bottom of the stairs and turned the corner to face the kitchen. What I saw made my blood run cold. A man was standing by the counter, his back to me. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark, nondescript clothing. His movements were methodical as he rummaged through the drawers, completely unaware of my presence. My first instinct was to back away, but as I shifted my weight, the floor creaked under me. The man froze. Slowly, he turned his head, and our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. His face was partially obscured by a mask, but his eyes cold, calculating, bore into mine. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking despite my efforts to sound authoritative. He didn't answer. Instead, he took a step toward me. My grip on the umbrella tightened as I raised it defensively. "Stay back," I warned. The man stopped, tilting his head as if studying me. Then, without warning, he lunged. I swung the umbrella with all my strength, the flimsy metal connecting with his arm. It wasn't enough to stop him. He grabbed the umbrella and yanked it out of my hands, tossing it aside like it was nothing. Panic set in as I stumbled backward, tripping over a chair and falling to the floor. He loomed over me, his shadow stretching across the room. Just as he reached for me, a sudden noise broke the tension, the sound of tires crunching on gravel outside. Headlights illuminated the window, and the man froze. In a flash, he bolted for the back door. I scrambled to my feet and ran to the window, watching as he disappeared into the woods behind the house. Whoever had pulled into the driveway had unknowingly scared him off. I've never felt such a mix of relief and terror as I did in that moment. My legs felt like jelly as I sank to the floor, clutching my chest as I tried to steady my breathing. The car outside turned out to belong to my neighbor, who had come to check on me after noticing my lights on so late. I told her what had happened, and she insisted on calling the police. When the officers arrived, they conducted a thorough search of the property but found no trace of the intruder. What they did find, however, sent chills down my spine. Outside the kitchen window, in the soft dirt, were footprints leading from the woods to my house. More unsettling was the discovery of a small toolkit abandoned near the back door. It was clear the man hadn't just stumbled into my house, he had planned this. The officers speculated that he had been watching the house for some time, waiting for the right moment to break in. The thought of being observed without my knowledge made my skin crawl. For weeks after the incident, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak, every shadow sent my heart racing. I eventually installed a security system and motion-activated lights around the property. But even with those precautions, I found it hard to sleep. The image of the man's eyes, staring at me with such cold intent, was seared into my memory. To this day, I don't know who he was or what he wanted. The police never found him, and I've since moved to a different house in a different city. But no matter how far I go, I can't escape the haunting question. What would have happened if my neighbor hadn't arrived when she did?